obviously right here in the shadow of Celtic Park, and we're not far from the Tron gate as well. We saw some very serious football-based disorder over the weekend. What did you make of it?
At the weekend, there was astonishingly poor behaviour by a small minority of fans that were at the sporting occasion. Most of the fans that were there to celebrate the football, to observe their teams, and caused absolutely no issues whatsoever. But a minority created real difficulties with the invasion of the pitch, and then also with the scenes at the Tron gate. And any violence in our society is unacceptable, and the violence that we saw at the weekend, which involved serious injury to police officers who were attending to a medical emergency involving a member of the public, is completely and utterly unacceptable.
But what can the government do about this? Because we're now in a situation where we've spoken about this a number of times. I spoke to Hamza Youssef about this a number of times. Did the same with Nicola Sturgeon, Jean Freeman when she was Sports Minister. It just seems like it keeps happening and happening, and the government clearly has to do something.
Well, the government will engage with the football clubs, with the local authorities, and with the football authorities.
In fairness, First Minister, you say that every time this happens.
Well,
nothing changes.
Well, we've got to undertake that engagement. If I give an example, Hearts, for example, engaged with the City Council in Edinburgh and arranged a programme that would be designed to ensure an orderly celebration of the success of the club if that had happened. Now, there was not a plan here in Glasgow for that, and that resulted then in, I suppose, the acceptance that there was going to be some gathering at the Tron gate. And, well, based on the weekend, that was completely unacceptable, because huge police resources had to be put in place. Huge City Council resources had to be put in place to protect people and infrastructure around about the Tron gate, and we saw unacceptable violence. So the government will engage with the football clubs, with the football authorities, and with the local authorities to take what steps we can take to avoid this happening. And if there are further legislative steps that we've got to consider to make sure that these issues are addressed, then we will do that.
But what steps can you take?
Well, there's obviously legislative proposals been talked about over the weekend around about pitch invasions. There are also issues in relation to football banning orders. We consulted on strengthening the football banning orders before the election. We received that feedback just before the election. We've now got to look at that material and see what steps that we can take. But the measures that need to be taken to make sure a minority of fans do not spoil the experience of the majority of fans, and certainly not the experience of members of the public just going about their lawful business on a daily basis, has got to be at the heart of the government's thinking on this matter.
And the idea of making pitch invasions illegal, is that something you would favour bringing in?
Well, we'll consider the issues involved in that. Obviously, we've undertaken a consultation around football banning orders. That concluded just before the election. We've got an opportunity to now consider that further after the election. The government will do so.
And it's also, I think, notable that this does not seem to be happening with other teams. Like you say, Hearts were able to put something in place for their fans. There were a number of other football games that took place across the country. It was the final game of the season. A lot of them were very important. This did not happen at any of those games. Why is it that it just seems to be, in essence, the Old Firm that this seems to affect? Well,
I think that's an issue that the clubs themselves have got to address. They've got a responsibility here, and some of the behaviour of a minority of their fans is completely unacceptable. When Aberdeen won the Cup, they were able to have a massive celebration in the city of Aberdeen, and okay, there was a bit of litter around, but that was about it. So they were able to have a massive celebration in the city of Aberdeen, and everybody had a good time, and nobody experienced unacceptable behaviour. But the fact that it's happening, and it happens with such regularity, is not acceptable, and the government will bring people together to address that.
So the club's failing in their responsibility then?
Well, I think there's an obligation on the clubs to address this. This is not just
clubs failing to do so?
Well, there's violence associated with on these occasions involving the Old Firm, and that's not acceptable. So that's got to be addressed, and we will engage with the clubs to ensure that's the case.